You are listening to the Intelligent Racer Podcast, where we look to educate and entertain the endurance racing community through discussions with racing professionals and elite age groupers.
In today's episode, I speak with Mike Reilly. He is known as the voice of Ironman. For those who do Ironmans, I'm sure you know him well. But for those who don't, I think Mike gives a really interesting perspective as to why Ironman is special. I hope you enjoy. Mike, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am great, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Let's start off with, you've announced well over 1,000 endurance event finish lines. And I think you're probably most famous for being the voice of the Ironman. So, especially for those who've never been to an Ironman event, what's your typical Ironman weekend look like?
You got like an hour? I always take a look at the weekend usually starts on the Wednesday or Thursday prior to the event. If it's a Saturday event, I'm there on Wednesday. If it's a Sunday event, I'm usually there Wednesday night or Thursday, because we've got pre-welcome ceremonies we do. There's interviews and pro panels. So there's a lot of stuff leading up to the race to not build up the hype, because the race is already hyped in itself, to get to race day. So I'm involved with a lot of that stuff, which is great. And it gives me always a good lay of the land of what's going on and who's there and what I kind of get a feel and sense of the energy of the community and the athletes and just try to suck all that up and then deliver it and let it spill out on race day. So it's I never gauge my time at an Ironman. Oh, people always come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, you've got such a long day." And my answer all the time is, it's just a day. It's a day in our lives. I don't care if it's, 19, 20 hour day. It's just going to be a great day in our lives. And before we know it, we snap our fingers and it's the next day already, even though, quote unquote, it was a long day. So the day on Ironman day, because we usually start the race by, at this last one in Santa Rosa, we started at 6:05. So it's they're early mornings, they're 3 o'clock wake up calls, 3:15 wake up calls. And then we go all day long watching them swim, bike, and run till they come to the finish line. And even though the leaders or winners will come in around between 3 and 4, then it takes the rest of the pack until that 17-hour mark close to midnight before we finish. So that's, in a very short version, what the time is for a week and a day for an Ironman.
Do you just draw the energy from the athletes and the vibe at the place that gets you through the day? Or, it's an endurance feat in itself to be able to, start off at 4 a.m. and you're there to midnight and you're full of energy. So I'm always, impressed by that. And I'm wondering what the secret is.
I don't know if there is a secret. I just love being able to acknowledge people and their athletic performances. If you take a look at, quote unquote, commentators or announcers in sport throughout the U.S. or throughout the world for that matter, they're commentating on the sport itself. They're commentating on that rugby match, that football game, that baseball game, and they're always talking about the professionals within that sport. And we all watch them, and it's great. And, the Vin Scullys of the world and the Dick Enbergs and on and on, the great voices out there that do that. But mine's a little different. Actually, mine's quite different, because I'm talking to the masses. I'm talking to the world. I'm talking to every age group from 18 to 84. I'm taking care of the cross section of everyone, and I don't need to try to figure out how to get through my day that way. I don't need to think about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do to get myself jacked up to keep the energy level up. It's just there, because I know that next person that comes out of the water, or I see on the hot corner halfway through the bike, or I see at the finish line, they need to be recognized in the best way possible. And that's really, in simplest terms, what my goal is. That's what I want to do. That's what I love to do. That's what I enjoy doing. And then knowing that their family and friends are listening online, or they're right there standing at the finish line, and to see their faces and knowing what their loved one is, what they've gone through, and to hear their name shouted out to the world. I'm commentating on the sport, so to speak, of Ironman, but really what I'm doing is I'm talking to the cross section of the world.
Right. And the way you describe it has me pumped up to want to sign up for another one. And I just finished one a couple weeks ago. So, so
20th anniversary next year in Lake Placid.
I know. Back. So in terms of the Ironman finish line, I mean, for those who haven't been to an Ironman or haven't competed in one, it's hard to explain, but it's a magical thing. I mean, it really is. Like, I've done races, all different brands, all different types of races. And there's something about that Ironman finish. And obviously you're one of the reasons in terms of the energy and vibe you bring to that finish line. But I mean, what else do you think makes it so special? I mean, it is something so unique in endurance sports, in my opinion. You just don't see it in any other type of event.
We've all gone through graduations in our life. We've all gone through getting to the end of a journey that we set a goal on. And whether it is graduating from high school or college or getting that doctorate, whether it is getting that job you really want and attaining success within that, there's always finish lines throughout our life, and we have to celebrate those because we put hard work in to get to them. Hell, sometimes the hardest work is even getting to the start line.
Right.
And that's true in Ironman. I mean, even to make that conscious decision of, are you kidding me? I'm going to go 2.4, 112, and then 26.2 on the run. I am going to do that. I'm going to make the commitment to do that. So what happens at the finish line is what happens at anybody's finish line in their life. The exaltation is through the roof because they've achieved a goal. They've gone on a journey. They've set their goals. And, I say that one of the simplest lessons in life we can teach our youth and teach ourselves is to finish what you start. And that's what happens at an Ironman. Sure, the training's more intense than a shorter distance triathlon. And I'm not taking away anything from somebody doing their first sprint triathlon. That could be their Ironman. And praise them for finishing that and even thinking about doing swim, bike, run. Whether they go on from that, it doesn't matter. That's their finish line. And so that's why it's so special at an Ironman. It's longer, it's harder, it's a tougher day. Things are going to happen that you didn't expect, and things are going to happen that didn't happen while you were training. So you have to go through this huge mental aspect of the game of pushing through those barriers and those walls. But sometimes you got to push through them at, only 4 miles into the run thinking, are you kidding me? I got, another 18 to go. I don't know, or another 22 to go. I don't know if I can do this. So that's why the Ironman finish lines are so special. And people sometimes get scared away from the distance, but others get drawn to it. They just get drawn to it.
And so I was reading a little bit about your background, and I think I read that you started doing announcing back in 1979. You've done, I read, over 2 million athletes crossing finish lines in 160 plus Ironmans. I mean, this all started from what I read from you were supposed to do, I think, what was it, a 10K, and then you were injured, so then someone asked you to announce the finish line, and it kind of went from there. I mean, do you feel like you've got lucky and stumbled across something that you're really passionate about?
I was in sales at that time, and I was a part of Toastmasters. I loved public speaking, and I just always loved public speaking. And I knew when I was in sales, I wanted to be able to be as polished with my speaking skills as possible, whether it was vocabulary or, don't do any run-on sentences. So I was always kind of training myself just because sales were my income. And then when all of a sudden, when I was injured, I had a bad hamstring at a race. It just became evident that when the race director saw me and she knew me, Lynn Flanagan, she goes, "What are you doing?" This was after the race took off. And I said, I got a bad hammy. I can't run. She goes, "Well, everybody. I went and got a microphone and a speaker. Here's the printout of the race. Why don't you call everybody in?" And I'm thinking, wow, I could like crank my friends. This is very cool. So I decided to grab the mic from her and did it. And it just kind of went from there. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you obviously have seen triathlon grow and evolve over time. I mean, what do you think has changed most about the sport since you first got involved in it?
Obviously, it's gotten bigger. We all have wanted it to get bigger. I've always been in this endurance space. I've always sold products in the endurance space. I'm one of the founding members of Triathlon Business International, trying to promote the businesses of triathlon. So we always want it to grow. We want retailers to sell more gear. We want bike shops to sell more bikes, on and on and on. And that's all fantastic. And then people, they say, well, gosh, it's more of a corporate world than it was before. And, this person owns this and this person owns this and they're buying this. And that's all the business aspect of anything. So when it comes down to how I think about it, it is still swim, bike, and run. When that cannon goes off on race day, they've all got to do the same thing over the same course and get to that same finish line. The accolades that I've given for 30 years to them are the same and hopefully better. The number of times people have done races over and over again are grown. There's a lot of people that have done 40 Ironmans and this and that, which is fantastic. So in my world, it's still about when that gun goes off to start the event. Here we go. It's swim, bike, and run. I don't know exactly what's going to happen on race day, but I know how it's going to unfold. And I want to be a big part of that, unfolding it in front of the world so that athlete is recognized and receives everything they deserve. That's always been the same.
One of the things on this podcast, I talk to a lot of different endurance athletes. I'm a triathlete and runner myself, but I talk to all different types. And sometimes there's a criticism to triathlon, and I obviously defend it and try to make the point that it's not true. But I think you have a unique perspective because you get to meet the pros, the elite age groupers, and the back of the pack, and you see kind of the camaraderie and the positive energy out of all this. I mean, the criticism would be that it's gotten too intensely competitive, or there's too many of these ultra type A people, of which I'm one of them, but I'm still friendly. But I would just love to kind of talk a little bit about the people of Ironman racing. And
well, starting with that question, starting with the pros, the professionals, in my mind, in our sport, in triathlon, whether it be an ITU racer, whether it be an Olympic guy, a lifetime guy, Ironman, whomever it is, I've always seen nothing but class from 99% of the pros. Sure, I've come across a few that I go, well, I don't know if I'd invite that person over to have a glass of wine at the house. So, and that's kind of how I look at it. So, but so many of the professionals are such classy men and women. I love being around them because they are genuine. Remember, this type of training and what they have to do keeps professionals humble. Jan Frodeno, he has no clue whether or not he's going to win Hawaii this year. And he knows that, even though he's dominated the last few years. Craig Alexander, after, setting his world record, he had no idea he was going to do that, but he did it. And the next year he didn't, you lose the race. So in the professional side, it's a tough business for them. That's why when I look into the newspaper and I see the last major golf tournament and I see the 10th place guy won, $750,000 in the first place, was $1.8 million. I just cringe. I go, why can't our athletes be receiving that type of money, our professionals, because they certainly deserve it. I see them as very classy people, nice, down to earth. And when I spend time with a pro and there's age groupers around, they talk to them like they're training buddies.
Right.
You can't go sit next to Bryce Harper and have a conversation with him about baseball, and he's going to want to talk to you about it. He just, it's not that. That's just not their world, but it's our world. And when it comes to the age groupers, it's a family. It's a really strong knit family. I have come across age groupers that are the type of personality where they can't even smile when they're talking, and I go, and I'll tell them, I'll look at them straight here, dude, you got to smile, you got to loosen up. You're having the time of your life, whether you know it or not. It could end tomorrow. You got to live one day at a time with this sport. It could end, and they get it, and they, oh yeah, I know, I'm that type of person. But for the most part, when they come across the finish line, it's rare that I don't see somebody just in jubilation of what they did at Santa Rosa, Ironman Santa Rosa last weekend. It was funny. I remember this because there was a young lady coming in. She was probably 35 to 39 age group, and she had this sour look on her face. And she was coming in. She had a great time, and she had this sour look on her face. So I assess it as fast as I can because I got somebody. Is she hurt? Is she limping? No. And with 10 feet to go, I said her name. I go, just smile. And she broke out into this unbelievable laughter. Like, thank goodness somebody said this to me. Because either she's thinking my finisher picture would have sucked, or I need to come out of that funk of, and it's just it's just letting people know it's the best. This is the best. And all age groupers and all pros, I just have a great experience with.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I actually just recently had an interview with a gentleman, an amateur by Sam Guide. He's from Belgium, and he's very, very successful. He's won his age group in Kona, and he
he just did Lake Placid.
Exactly, second amateur great. There. I mean, great guy. And I asked him in the interview on the podcast, I was like, what is, for someone aspiring to get to Kona, I mean, what would your advice be? And one of the major things he said was just make sure you're having fun. Don't be so focused on that singular goal, and really enjoy the fact that you're out there having fun. And that's such a good point. Even though as competitive as he is, he's like, you still have to smile, you still have to have a good time. And that's such a good point. So in terms of, Ironman finishes, are there any that are really memorable for you, whether it's because of, weather conditions or a special finish, or obviously Kona, I'm sure is, every year is a special one because it's the World Championship. Anything notable or anything that comes to mind?
It's very difficult for me to pinpoint because I've had so many. I had a conversation with a guy the other day at Santa Rosa, and he was reminding me about an event 12 years ago, one of the Ironmans. And he started talking to me about what it was, and it was a weather thing. And I go, oh my gosh, I remember that. And then I went into the story. I go, we did this, we did that, we did this. And it was a great memory, great recollection. But when people ask me, what's your greatest, one of my greatest memories of Ironman, and always will be, was bringing my son Andy in 2013 to his first Ironman. He was 2 years old when I started the Ironman game. Right. Or 3 years old. So all of a sudden to bring him in as a 28-year-old, it was magical. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget Chrissy Wellington's first win, because she kind of came out of nowhere and she wasn't really being talked about. And it's nice seeing that. I'll never forget the Mark and Dave in '89 and that entire war.
Oh yeah.
I'll never forget Paula's performances, almost every one of them, because every year Paula Newby-Fraser just kept raising the bar on the other women. And when I was in Australia to see Laurie Bowden break 3 hours in the marathon for the first time, a woman doing, things like that. And but so many of the memories are with age groupers, and that's why I'm penning a book now about stories from the finish line, of stories age groupers have told me, what they've gone through to get to the finish line, and when I bring them in, what it means to them. And I know it means a lot, but we don't all know everybody's backstory and what they've overcome to get there. So, every it's like saying, what's my favorite Ironman? Sure, I say Kona, but really my most favorite Ironman is the one I'm at.
Right. Exactly.
It has to be. That's it. That's the one I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of backstories or interesting stories, I actually, in Placid, injured my foot. Nothing significant, but it made me have to walk a little bit more on the marathon than I wanted. And this gentleman came up to me and he was telling me how he did Ironman Lake Placid, 15 years prior. He got into a severe car accident or an accident, and he was, long story and really terrible thing, but he said his one goal was to return to Lake Placid, and it took him 15 years and rehab and all these things, and he was there next to me doing it, and I was just like, man, so many inspiring stories out there. So I'm looking forward to the book. I'm sure you have a lot of them too. So it's a really interesting and special community, and since it is a bucket list type of thing, you get a lot of interesting people who are coming over some incredible stuff.
No doubt.
So back to a second for when your son was doing his first Ironman. Were you nervous and tracking him all day and kind of having extra nerves? I know my wife says that she really has a hard time enjoying the Ironman days because she's so nervous. And I tell her, just relax, it's going to work out, it's fine. But it's tough to spectate and really track someone you really care about.
Yeah, and I've tracked a lot of people over the years that I've been close to, and I've always been able to kind of. And Andy was different because it was my blood, but I've always been kind of able to put him to the side because I'm taking care of the one I'm with, the one coming in or the one coming in, and then I track and see where they're at, and it's great. But I don't really get nervous. My biggest nervous aspect of that is, my goodness, don't be in the bathroom when so-and-so comes in, because I really want to call them an Ironman. So that's really where the big nerves are. When Andy was out there, his mom, my wife, and his older sister were at the finish line with a lot of friends, but, mainly his mom and sister. And my biggest worry was about them. I knew they were so nervous and one was going to put the medal on him, the other was going to put the Mylar blanket, which they did, and it all worked out. So I'm more nervous for people around me who are nervous. I know there's a lot of family members out there for people, and they're going through hell. Some of them just cannot wait till they get to the finish and the looks on their faces. And it's my job to be able to keep them calm and don't worry, he's going to get here. They're going to get here. So it's almost like I don't have time to be nervous.
Yeah. You have a lot going on and a lot of responsibilities. So speaking of Kona, I mean, it's obviously the big dance, the World Championship, and you've seen it throughout the years, and obviously you've seen some amazing history there. But I mean, besides it being a World Championship, I mean, what do you think makes that special? I mean, why do the people kind of, other than the fact that it's hard to get into, I mean, people really aspire to be able to go there and race? And
it's got a few aspects to it about that. One is it's almost like a world global family reunion, because a lot of people go there every year, whether they work the race or they keep requalifying. So you're able to all of a sudden, Kona opens up the front door of the house and we all go in and have the time of our lives. And a lot about Kona is the anticipation of getting there. And knowing that this person's going to go or this person's going to go, oh my gosh, I saw this pro qualify. I just had 40 people in Santa Rosa jump up for joy when I called their name for the slot allocation. So I know they'll be there. So it's like we are all going to meet again in a very sacred place and spiritual place. And it's going to be for an unbelievably fantastic reason. The joy of being able to be us. And so that's why Kona is very special. The world comes to the front door and they walk into the Kailua Kona community and we're all there together. There's nothing more you could ask for in life, whether it's your own family on a reunion or it's the Ohana, the family of Hawaii, and all of us coming there. And then, yes, people have to qualify. It's a tough race. The best in the world from pros to age groupers are there. To be able to come up on the stage as the top 5 and in the age group or top 10 in the age group is monumental to people. It's a bragging right for the rest of their lives. It's a world championship. It's our Masters. It's our U.S. Open. It's our World Cup. It's everything in one fell swoop. So that's why it's got that spirit, and it is a special place. The island is a very special place, and it seems to take a little bit of you when you're there, and you leave with a little bit of yourself on the island, which is a good thing because it wants you to come back. That's what it's like to me.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been to the Big Island, not for the actual race, but for other reasons. But I definitely need to get there one time, either qualifying or just showing up and cheering or volunteering. It sounds amazing for sure. So in terms of today in the triathlon world, and maybe you don't have a good answer for this, but I'm just curious. I mean, because all of the kind of characters and people that are in the sport. I mean, is there anyone in particular that kind of stands out as you're saying, like, this is a really good role model for the sport? Or
Sure. What I really like to see, and it's happening quite a bit, is people like Dave Scott and Mark Allen, who are still a part of the sport in a big way, giving back with their coaching. Trying to have people become better people first and better triathletes, and to get to that Mecca or to get their Mecca, maybe Ironman Chattanooga. But for them to be, I think it's fantastic. They're still part of the sport, selfishly, so that we don't lose them. We still get to see them and talk to them. The same with Paula Newby-Fraser and Heather Fuhr. They're still working for Ironman. They take care of the pro ranks and make sure everything's good for those professionals. And Paul is over there in Europe with her husband, Paul Huddle, and putting on events over there and help. So they're still part of the game. They're still part of the mix. I absolutely love that. There's others that I see as incredible role models because of the type of person they are. They give a lot back to their community and to their country. There's been, Craig Alexander in Australia. He just loves, every time you ask him to do something, he does it. He just doesn't hesitate. People like that are just, they're rare. And we have many of them in our sport. Andy Potts, I called him before Ironman Lake Placid. Andy's 39, 40 years old now. He's been doing it a long time. And we contacted him and I said, I'd love to have you a part of the welcome ceremony. You're doing it as a pro. You've won Lake Placid before a couple times. And And right away, God, Mike, that'd be great. I'll come up there. And what do you want me to talk about? I mean, there's no discussion of, hey, will you pay me, or I only can give you 15 minutes or anything. It's yes. What can I do? So we have so many like that in the sport. I'm part of the Ironman Foundation, and as the captain, along with Marinda Carfrey and Tim O'Donnell, and we did a service project at Ironman Boulder, and there Marinda comes out, pregnant as can be, and she's out there working with us and out in the one of the mountain ranges outside of Boulder, and sharing her time with all the athletes. No matter what they asked her, she answered. So I could go in. There's probably 50 to 100 of them like that throughout the world that are just so very special.
And speaking of the Ironman Foundation, I'm actually based in New York City, so I've been fortunate enough to go to the kickoff or the premiere of the
gala,
and it's a lot of fun and obviously a great community. So and I know you were there. So I'm going to plug it then, because this year it's Tuesday night, December 5th. I don't recall the location, but it's in New York City, Tuesday night, December 5th, for the preview of the NBC show. And, Marinda and Tim will be there, and it's going to be one heck of a gala if you can get there. For sure. I highly, highly recommend it if you're in New York City or in the area or want to come into the city to, do something special. It's really, really cool. So, Mike, we're almost out of time here. So I guess I'll leave you with one final question, and which is, you are a single human and you're known as the voice of the Ironman. So you obviously, when you're picking your schedule for the year, there's some pressure there. Obviously Kona is going to be on there, but from there, I know you took a survey and you have to make some decisions and things. I mean, how do you go about kind of figuring out what you're going to do for the season in terms of announcing, and then also what is left on the docket for 2017?
Well, going through the upcoming season, the reason I did that survey last time is because prior years, what I would do is just on my Facebook public page, hey, where would you like to see me? And so my son came and he goes, I can do a survey. We'll set it up on your Facebook Live page and just see where people think you could go. And we listed a bunch of races. Obviously, I'm not going to go do Ironman Austria unless I'm asked. So I didn't put some races on there that one day I would love to do, but it became, I just could not believe the number of votes came in. I don't know, it was like 13 or 14,000 votes came in, and places that I didn't think I was really going to go to, I went to this year because of that voting. So I wanted to take care of many people as I can. The thing is, I can't be two places at one time. Physically, I can't pull off 3 or 4 Ironmans in a row. I did Lake Placid, Santa Rosa back to back. And, it gets a little tough with the travel and the voice and just being gone from home. So I try to pick the schedule according to my schedule, where I can go. Ironman has a lot to do with it, where they would like to see me go. There's a couple of races I would have liked to have done this year, but it just didn't work out. And it's just kind of, I try to get to as many races as I can. I do know one thing. I do know Lake Placid will always be in my schedule. I started with that race when it started, and I don't want to leave it until I have to. I've always done Wisconsin. I've always done Arizona. So I've got a few staples that I'll leave in, obviously Kona. And as long as Ironman wants me, I want to keep doing it. And I'm sorry, what was the last part of your question?
Well, yeah, it was, what do you have on tap for the rest of the season?
Oh.
So I think Mount Tremblant is one, right, coming up soon, right?
Yeah, Mont Tremblant, and I've got that on the 20th of August, and then the next weekend, Ironman Coeur d'Alene, and then Ironman Wisconsin on September 10th, and then Ironman Chattanooga on the 24th. I'm not going to the 70.3 World Championship in Chattanooga because it's the same weekend as Wisconsin, and, I'm an Ironman guy. I'd love to be a part of a World Championship as I am in Kona. I've been a part of the Frankfurt European Championships and the Australian Championships, so it's a great atmosphere, but with Wisconsin on the same day, and I've never missed it, I'm going to go to Wisconsin. And then after September, obviously Kona in October. That's the only event I'll do in October because of Kona, and then end up with Ironman Arizona on the 19th of November.
Cool. And I lied. I have one more question. I said that was the last one, but you kind of sparked.
That's
okay. So as someone who's never been to Arizona and Wisconsin, and you said they're sort of your staples, including Placid, which I've been to, and obviously we talked about Kona. I mean, out of those two, I mean, what makes them special to you in terms of keep going back? I just want to understand from a bucket list perspective, if and why they should be on there for everyone who's looking to do Ironmans in North America.
Yeah, people always ask me that, and I want to reiterate, I don't want to be the deciding factor for someone to go do a race. I rate it for Mike Reilly because of certain aspects of it. I love the character of Madison, the capital city, the college town. They're huge sports enthusiasts. The crowds there are always very, very large. I've ridden that course. It's a challenging bike course with a lot of roly-poly stuff, so it's not an easy course. And I just tell people that's why I like to go to Wisconsin. Lake Placid's like going home. It's like a second home to me just because of being there for 19 years. And the community has this winning spirit, this Olympic winning spirit that I've always just felt. So that's what I like about that. Arizona is Arizona, it's kind of personal. I get to drive over there, just throw my stuff in the back of the car from San Diego and drive over there. That's very cool. And I've got a huge connection with Arizona. I used to own a retail running shoe store in Phoenix. I was a part of that running community for a long time, then the triathlon community. And when I found out we're going to Arizona, I've got a lot of old friends and buddies there. And you know, for the athlete, it's a great one to be able to train all summer and fall long, and then hit a course that's a pretty doggone fast course. So it's a great way to end the season.
You know, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. And by the way, you know, you've been at both of my Ironmans. I did Placid this year and Mount Tremblant last year. And so, you know, thank you for all that you do at these events. It really does make it special. And it's really memorable when, you know, you hear your name being named, called at the finish line, or seeing you in transition in the morning. It's really, really energizing and makes it part of a special experience. So thank you for that. And thanks for your time.
Well, thanks, Adam, and thanks for being a part of the business and doing a podcast like that and introducing people, you know, the age groupers out there to people they may see and recognize, but they aren't able to touch or talk to. And you bring the triathlon community closer together in doing what you do. So I personally appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Intelligent Racer Podcast. For more information on this and other episodes, please visit www.intelligentracer.com. Also, be sure to check us out on social media, and please review us on your podcast directory. Join us next time for another edition of the Intelligent Racer.